It's like a little the boxing one that comes down.
Yeah.
Am I talking to you or am I talking to the?
Depends on what
right.
it is.
All right.
Talk to whoever you like.
All right.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 104 of the Random Thoughts Show. It's a pretty exciting one for me. I'm off-site. I'm at Melbourne Strength Culture, for those of us listening and can't see. I'm joined today by Jamie Smith. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on the show here today.
So you're the head coach?
Yeah, owner and head coach, yep.
Tell us a bit about Strength Culture, or Melbourne Strength Culture, what you guys do, how it started.
Yeah, definitely. So we're a strength and conditioning gym, mainly specialising in powerlifting, but we also do a little bit of athletic development from my own background. We've been open for just a tick over 2 years, so we're 25 months now. Yep. So we just had our 2-year birthday about a month ago, which is quite exciting. It's crazy to think that we've been doing this for 2 years, but yeah, it's been really good. So yeah, we're a strength and conditioning gym, focusing mainly in powerlifting. We've got a pretty big powerlifting team here from the Powerlifting Australia. And
a pretty impressive one too. Tell us about your recent win.
Yeah, so we just had the Junior National Championships 2 weeks ago and we walked away with the best male team. So there's a point system depending on where you come in in your weight category, and we had enough points across the board to take home the chocolate.
So it's not actually a qualitative thing, it's quantitative. They actually measured your total lifters and the scores they get, and then...
Yeah, so it depends on where you come in each individual category. So there's obviously some weight classes. So there's 7 weight classes across the men's category. So there's a 66 kilo class, a 74, 83, blah, 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 blah. And across the board, we had the most accumulative points. So a first place getter would get 12 points, second place will get 9, and then it comes down from there.
It's just like Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so as a whole, our team had the most accumulated points. Yeah.
We've been pretty proud of that.
Yeah, probably the most proud moment we've had so far. We've had a couple cool things happen this year, especially with a couple of lifters going to Worlds, and we had a world champion as well. And like big PBs, national records and stuff. But I think as a team and as what we've built as a team, it's definitely the proudest moment we've had for sure.
It's incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So social media is a funny thing. Today is the first time we've ever met. But we've actually known of each other probably 2 years since you guys.
I think probably like a month or so after we opened, I reckon. Yeah.
So our mutual friend Pete Cotterides, G'day Cotter, got us in touch, and he told me while you were over in America, which we'll talk about in a second, he said, there's a smart guy, he's around Melbourne, he's away at the moment, keep tabs on Jamie Smith. And I'm going, oh yeah, cool. Heaps of people doing their degrees and interns all over the place. Yeah. And then so followed you on social media and such. And you made a post recently, 2 years ago now, saying, what's a good camera to get? And at that time I was just learning how to do the vlogging stuff and doing our YouTube channel at Core Advantage. And I was like, Jamie, you need to get this camera. It shoots great photos. The video is awesome. Get this mic. And you're like, cheers, man. Appreciate it.
And I went out and bought it that day. And this is the thing, I'm real spontaneous. And Charlie, like the other head coach here, he warns people about how spontaneous I can be. So we opened a gym. We can get into it, but I opened the gym within 3 weeks of getting home from America.
Yep.
Literally, signed the contract.
Tell that story.
Oh, yeah. So I went to America. I started in strength and conditioning in the elite sector.
Let's start from the start.
There's a few stories.
Jamie's got a really interesting story. In a lot of ways, it's the story that I would have had I not met Durham and worked at Core Advantage. I imagine I would have gone to the States and then come back and possibly done my own thing. So you're effectively a parallel universe version of where I would potentially be.
I think there's a lot of coaches in our position,
there's 2 kind of routes. There's 3 really if you add the elite sector. So let's go back to square one, high school. Let's talk about how you got from high school to here, and take as long as you need. I think it's a really interesting story for potential interns out there.
Definitely there's a few key moments in it. So high school, I was a typical athletic kid. I made actually state basketball team in under 14s, I think it was. And I never actually played because mum didn't let me, because she spoke to the coach and said that I wasn't going to get much court time. So she didn't want me to...
She pulled the pin on you.
Yeah, so they didn't want me to... Like, you know how like the representative teams, like some of them, they do all the travel and the kid pays 2 minutes?
So funny story. My mum wouldn't let me do under 18 state tries because I was rubbish growing up. And I got good around 18. And I was probably... Maybe I was country, so not metro. It's a little easier to get into the country program. I would have been top 30.
Yeah.
So I would have been a shot maybe for an Same thing. Mum wouldn't let me go because she knew I wasn't going to make the top 10.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I wasn't allowed to go. So
Similar. I was a lot younger. I think it was under 14s or 13s. I think it might have been year 7, so under 13s. I think that is.
Early days.
Yeah. But anyway, athletic kid nonetheless. Dabbled in a few sports: volleyball, basketball, football. I think most kids in Melbourne do. And I always enjoyed the gym. I started training with Charlie, who's actually the business partner here. Yep. We started training together at 14. We took a Fitness First 2-week free opportunity at Fitness First, and we used to get the bus down the 822 to Chadstone Shopping Centre just down the road. And we used to go every holiday period, so for 2 weeks in all the holiday breaks throughout the year, and took advantage of that free sort of sessions that they gave to get kids, trial periods. So I've always been interested in the gym, and then I just started to read a lot of blogs because at that point YouTube wasn't really that big at all.
And podcasting would have been a lot less.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything as well. So particularly in the strength and conditioning space, there probably was a few other areas that had that developed already, but strength and conditioning blogs were the main thing. So I used to read a lot of Eric Cressy, Joe DeFranco, and Mike Boyle would probably be the big three, but then Mike Robertson as well as a couple of not as well-known coaches. Yeah.
For those not familiar, they're all the big, some of the big dogs in the States.
Yeah, I would say they're the ones that really pioneered the private sector.
And the private sector, and also the idea of sharing what you're doing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Mike and Eric in particular became very good at making products, writing blogs, giving out free content online for people like Jamie, who could then access that. Here's the thing I do about cool shoulder tricks, or cool thing for hip mobility.
And I think back then, and this is just every market now, it's very saturated right now, but back then, it was all groundbreaking because so much of that content hadn't been shared. The funny thing is, I went to a seminar about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, had some of the big researchers come across to Melbourne on body composition and sort of that health and fitness sort of side, not so much strength and conditioning, but I felt like a lot of their presentations, I've literally seen infographics on now, and all the content is just digested on Instagram almost. But back then, it was literally Joe DeFranco has a new blog on power development. Whoa, this is crazy. Box jumps.
On Monday, everyone was doing or trying that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was definitely a different time, but that's where I was absorbing a lot of my information from. And then obviously going to school. It got to year 12, and then obviously they start to push university on you. I actually...
Pick a degree.
Yeah, exactly. From family pressure and the careers coordinator at school, I got pushed into a double degree of business management at Monash. And within the first 8 weeks, I hated it. I did the exams. I don't think I failed anything. I think I got 53% on a couple, accounting 101.
Squeezed through.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went home and I said, Mum, I'm quitting uni. This is not for me.
8 weeks in, straight out of school. So
School.
Straight into that
at Monash. And about 8 weeks mark, I was like, this isn't me. I need to get out of this. So I quit the degree after exams, and Mum threatened to charge me rent if I wasn't either studying or working.
Good work, Mum. That's a smart move.
Exactly. So I was like, I'll just go and do my Cert 3-4. And so that's how I sort of started. And I was lucky I was at a time where it was heavily government funded. So it cost me $380 or something. Yeah. I did the full-time course with the Australian Institute of Fitness, and that's when that all started. So I finished the second half of that first year out of school and did my certificates, and then went and transferred into sports science at Deakin, to which I just finished part-time because I was building my personal training business on the side.
So you were working as a trainer?
Yeah, personal training.
A normal gym?
I started in a small gym, and then I sort of got poached by a studio, so to speak, down in Hampton. They'd heard a couple of good things. They were just starting up. Two of the other trainers from the health club I was working at were taken as well, and they said there's this young trainer. We probably could put a bit of time into him and develop him. So then they contacted me, and then I started there. So that was about probably 6 months into my personal training. Yep. And I started at this small studio in Hampton, to which I did 3.5 years. So I was building that alongside my university degree. So university was part-time, and that was a decision I made because I wanted to develop my practical skills of being a coach and communicating, and the soft side of coaching that I think a lot of young coaches miss out on because they don't have they don't jump in the deep end of actually going to get what I like to call coaching reps. I got it off Christian Woodford, but coaching reps, literally just every time you say something, that's a rep of you coaching and delivering and trying to communicate. Yeah.
Just like you build strength, you should build your ability to do cue an exercise, your ability to troubleshoot problems.
Yeah, and that's something that we definitely focus here with our internship group as well. But I wanted to develop those skills from the onset. So I'd always had part-time uni, and then I developed my business alongside. So for 3.5 years.
So when does that take us to?
So that takes me, there's a few more little steps in there. Through there as well, I started interning at Port Melbourne Football Club in the VFL. I was 21 and I got the strength coach job there, unpaid, but it was a very good opportunity for me.
VFL level,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we were just joking on some pre-talk here, but I was actually coaching past AFL guys, even guys that were that went back to play AFL out of it
in the system.
Yeah. In a shipping container at Port Melbourne. We had 2 shipping containers. One of them had all the cardio equipment. So there was like 4 spin bikes, 2 boxing bags. And there was a rower and maybe just sandbags and stuff. That was in one shipping container. And then in the other shipping container, we had a bench press with 2 rusty barbells, some broken dumbbells, those old school spin 'em on dumbbells. Yep. And that's where I started to get my feet wet in strength and conditioning, so athletic development.
So moving from that sort of, we call it the civilian population or the...
Gen Pop, sort of weekend warrior.
Into actual athletic training for performance.
Yeah. So I started with that, and that was all alongside building my personal training business and also my university degree as a part-time student. And then... a gym around the corner called Woodford Sports Science Consulting opened up, and he had been to America, and that was a big goal for me at that time. So I went in there, and I said, I'm going to come in with some questions for you, Christian. He's like, yeah, that's fine. We'll put away 30 minutes. And I came in with 3 A4 pages of specific questions. And this is something that I don't like with my own interns. They ask what are your thoughts on the RDL? It's in what context? My questions were specific. I'm I've got this person. What should I do? Didn't it?
So you've had some experience working in the high performance athletic development sector, but mostly personal training at a Gen Pop level.
At this point,
yeah. How old are you at this stage? Before
22.
So you're 22.
Actually, no, I was 21.
21. So what do you think is it about your background? Because that's quite a meticulous approach. I know 21-year-old Jacob definitely would not have been that thorough. I might have had those questions in my head, but not written down to that level. Where'd that come from?
I don't know. I've always been, and this is another thing that we joke about here, chess, not checkers, the idea of playing and developing a chess game in your life rather than trying to develop a checkers game where it's one move at a time and you can't really develop strategies and all that sort of stuff.
So being a little more big picture strategic as opposed to
exactly.
tactics.
And understanding that. And another thing that I like to talk about is compounding decisions. The decisions that I'm making now, and even still in the early stage of this business, the decisions that I'm making now are setting up decisions that will be available for me in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years' time. And if I make better decisions now, I will have better decisions in front of me at that point.
That makes so much sense. So it's the idea that careers, lives, relationship, it's not a linear, I do this, and then the next step of that. No. You do that, and that will influence how easy or hard or beneficial the next
every single step that I took from my early days made it easier for me to ultimately, we'll get to it, go to America, which is what the turning point for me was. But it was always a conscious decision for me to take the next step or to develop this certain skill, which would help with my next project or my next group, whoever they were, wherever I was coaching or whatever.
Where'd that come from, though? Go back a step further. How did not many 21-year-olds are doing that level of chess, not checkers thinking? Was it your parents? Was it siblings? I think
I wouldn't say sporting. And again, Charlie, business partner here, we joke that I'm a bit of I'm a softie in terms of physical competitive stuff. So sport wasn't that much of an influence. I enjoyed getting around mates and stuff, but I don't think that would have been. I would say that it would be my parents. Mm-hmm. I've come from a very supportive family. We're quite close, definitely closer now in the past couple of years since opening this. But I would say it's probably just my upbringing as a whole. My dad ran his own business, and my mum was very influential on him and some of the decisions he made early days in his sort of early business. And I think that's what spurred a lot of their decision making into eventually becoming quite successful in the building and the property development realm. So I think I probably soaked a lot of it off them.
That level of thinking comes from there.
Yeah, I would assume so. But that's a I'd probably need to think about that question. I think
maybe part 2.
Yeah.
So you've now gone to WSSC.
Yeah, so I've just started at WSSC.
3 A4 sheets of very thorough, meticulous questions
with Christian Woodford, and he was
kind enough to give you some time.
Yeah, no, Christian has been fantastic for me. And definitely, if I had a podium of people that have been influential on my career, Christian Woodford would easily be on that podium. I've got a lot of respect for him for what he's done for the industry and for me as my own coach. So, yeah, for sure. So then I was sitting there and he's like, you know what, you need to get around us. Like, we are what you want to do. Like, you should train here. So I hired a coach called John Paul Cowkey, who was a powerlifting. He had just gone to Worlds.
JP.
Yeah, JP. Yeah, JP. And I started coaching underneath JP. So
you've just said he's a powerlifter. He's a little more than a powerlifter.
Yeah, well, he's world record holder, 2-time junior world champion. Probably the biggest powerlifting name here in Australia. Very big following around the world. Yeah, he's unreal. He's got his own gym as well.
For context, I followed JP on Instagram. He's a beast.
Yeah.
So the powerlifting competition is a squat, a bench press,
and a deadlift.
And you get 3 attempts at each.
3 attempts at all lifts. You roll through your squats first, and then you roll through your bench presses, and then you go through your deadlifts.
What's his deadlift record? At what body weight?
Well, it just got broken by one of my lifters.
Oh,
yeah, about 3 weeks ago at Junior Nationals. But some of his best lifts, I think at 66 kilos, he pulled 286.
So over 4 times body weight.
Yeah, I think that was probably his best deadlift at 66. That was the world junior record at the time. I think it might still be.
How close is it to the open record?
I think in the 66s, the open's a tick over 300. So yeah, just a little bit, but still, like we're talking very, very crazy.
So he is in the top 0.000.
Yeah, he's
strong people.
Yeah, he's definitely at the peak of that mountain for sure. Yeah.
And so you hire him at WSC?
Yeah, and I just started coaching under him. So he was teaching me a lot about just good, solid barbell training. It wasn't powerlifting specific at that point. I had showed interest in it, but just good barbell training. So good pressing techniques, squatting techniques, deadlifting techniques, RDLs, and then just by nature of being surrounded by the Woodford coaches, we did a little bit of sprint mechanic work and all that sort of stuff. And I ended up training there for 18 months at Woodford's. It almost became I was part of the furniture down there, and there was a running joke that they were going to hire me and that they should give me a chance, but that was never my intention to work there. It was just I wanted to absorb as much as I could from those coaches. And then through that time, I was coming to the end of my university and I needed to do my hours for practicum. And I already had a pretty solid wealth of experience behind me. So I knew I could probably get a very good practicum position. So I went for the Carlton Football Club position in the VFL, in the AFL Sports Science Department.
And this is through your degree?
This was for my practicum hours. Yep. So my final, it was my 4th year, but yeah, my final year practicum hours of 140 hours. And actually in the interview process for the internship in the AFL team with Carlton, they wanted me to apply for the paid position of the VFL head strength coach. So that was unfolding through the application process. And then they said, can you please apply for this as a paid position as well? Like, we think you have the skills and everything. And I actually was given that as well. So in my final year degree, I had a paid position with the VFL team at Carlton, and then I had the internship at the AFL team.
Are you still personal training at this stage as well?
I was still personal training. Yeah. So
it's pretty busy.
Yeah. And this is where my story takes a very sharp turn.
So at this stage, as someone in the S&C industry, it looks like you're heading for an AFL head or assistant strength coach.
That was the goal.
High performance manager type role.
That was the goal.
With an AFL.
Without a doubt, that was the goal. The goal was elite sport, top of the tree, like have a team under me, a lot of money in the system to work with, and really have influence on the players and a system of coaching.
Which for a lot of interns and sports science students is the dream.
That's definitely. I think, and a lot of people that get into personal training, they want to get into athletes because it's almost like that logical step of, So for me, that was the goal. Yep. Within 5 weeks, though, however,
being in the
internship, I was actually dismissed.
Right.
Yeah, and this is where I actually spoke to Durham yesterday about this, but my position was revoked from the internship, and as a result of that, I lost my position with the VFL team as well. So within 5 weeks, my glitz and glam.
The upward escalator
Came crashing down. Looking back at it now, like I was very bitter at the start, but looking back at it now, I still don't quite understand the decision process behind it. But it definitely blurred my sort of perception of the elite sector and what it could have been. And it left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, obviously. But from that, because again, I'm playing chess, not checkers, I thought, where could my next move be? I spoke to Christian, and Christian's like, you got to go to America. So that was my next step. Who can I go to America? Just start again, start fresh in the strength and conditioning, and start looking at the private sector. And that's where I got onto Eric Cressy. Yeah.
Now, Eric Cressy, for those who don't know, is possibly the biggest name.
I think he is. I personally think he is.
That's a product of him being brilliant. So he's a brilliant strength coach, and you called him the Godfather just before.
Yeah, the GOAT. I call him the GOAT for sure.
One of the best of all time. He's done a brilliant job of forming a niche. So he's a baseball specialist and a shoulder specialist. He has a great business mind as well. Yeah,
so he's got a business partner. So he started the gym with another coach, and then his business partner being Pete Dupuis. The two of them, though, so Pete and Eric together are Cressy Sports Performance. So Pete runs the back end, the whole business model, and then you've got Eric, who is he's got his finger on the pulse on so many different fields. Like, it's incredible. Yeah.
And so through that, and also the other part of the pie with him when it comes to his domination of strength and conditioning and knowledge of strength and conditioning is his social media game. His willingness to share free content constantly and regularly.
Yeah.
And just, there it is. This is how we do deadlifts
for
free
100%.
Online, and that's what makes him.
He was the figures that I had, the four figures from when I used to read blogs as 14, 15, 16 was Eric Cressy, Mike Boyle, Joe DeFranco, and Mike Robinson. They were my four go-to guys. Yeah. So when I decided that I need a break from Australian strength and conditioning, I need to go and experience and get some new input into my sponge as a coach. Those were the four names that jumped out to me. Yeah.
So Cressy's internship, I can't imagine, is easy to get into.
Yeah.
How did it start? How'd you get that?
So I lost the position at Carlton. I think within about 3 weeks, I'd actually been accepted at Cressy Sports Performance it would have been. So it was a very quick turnaround for me. So I applied with an email. They have a very different application process. There's nothing on their website. We do the same thing actually here at Strength Culture now because I like it. There's nothing on their website that actually says that there's we're running internships from this date to this date or whatever it is. You have to be forward in seeking. And email them and say, hey, I'm Jamie Smith. I'm looking to become an intern at your place. I'm aware you do an internship. Can you please give me some more information? So that's
it's like a backdoor password thing.
And that's the start of their application process. So if you stuff up your initial email and you have spelling mistake errors, you are abrupt, you don't ask the right questions, grammar, all those little things, that is where their application starts with that first email. So if you have a poor first opening email, you won't actually get the application.
They'll just ignore it.
They'll reply and say, unfortunately, we're not taking on anyone right now. So they're very, but they have to be because they're one of the best private sector gyms in the world. Exactly. I think their take-in rate is like 4% or something. So the amount of intern applications they get, they take in 4% of them.
Very competitive.
Yeah, so it's a very competitive field. So I'd read a couple of blogs before because I was an avid reader back then. I don't read as much right now, but about how to apply for their internship. And I followed those blogs to a T pretty much, and to the point where I then got the application process. It was I think it was a 3-page maximum CV and cover letter, as well as once you pass that second stage, then it's a Skype session, which I got a funny story about as well, but it was a Skype interview with Pete. None of this is to Eric at all. Again, they talk about that if you're purely emailing Eric, we will turn around and say, this is not for you. Exactly. You've got to be aware that it's more than just Eric Cressy.
Because while we all want to pay it forward and be incredibly generous with our time and help the next generation of coaches and potentially hire people out of that sort of process as well, like this is a pretty time-intensive business.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's so much more than just like some of our athletes and their parents joke that, what do you guys do? Because we start coaching in the afternoon at 4. Like, do you guys just surf all day and just rock up? It's like, no, we're in the office writing programs, emailing physios, making podcasts. Like, there's a lot of content, behind the scenes stuff that goes on as well.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely feel the same thing because we're closed for 5 hours during the day, and everyone asks us, "What are you doing during the day?"
It's like, that's when the real work happens.
I run a business during the day.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. There was a Skype interview, and then within a 3-week period, I had been accepted for the following year to go.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a very quick turnaround.
So the thing to take away from me here, because I always thought like you just can't get close. They're so competitive, it's just impossible. But what you've done is you've hacked it. Of like how to apply for the Cressy internship. You literally Google that, and there's 10 blogs.
Exactly.
Follow the rules.
Yeah, follow the rules, and this is, I think it's just good life lessons that your initial meeting with someone is very important, and the way you shake their hand, the way you make eye contact, all that sort of stuff. Like, it goes a long way. And even just an email, like we get emails from certain physios, they come in and they're just abrupt, and we're like, I'm not going to send you clients because you've just
it's a circular. It's a small world.
Yeah, exactly. Like that initial meeting can make or break a relationship, a professional relationship, whatever relationship. So.
And in every industry, strength conditioning and the world, serendipity is so important. At the end of the day, people are making decisions. People are driving things, and if you're rude and you're arrogant or you're full of yourself, it becomes very hard to have that person then speak favorably in the future.
Yeah.
So if I'd come here today to meet Jamie and he was rude and didn't offer me things and things like that, it's like, well, if we get someone asking us about powerlifting, I'm not going to send them to you, and we're not going to do things together. Boys, the exact opposite. You've been hospitable. This has been a fantastic experience. So now we have got a connection, and now we can team up, and you make the whole pie and the whole sector bigger by working as a team.
Well,
I think that's so important.
One of my favorite quotes is, when the tide rises, all ships float. Yeah. So everything, by just everyone working together and bringing more people in and communicating better and creating content and all that sort of stuff, like, we're all going to get better. This is not a competition. Even though you guys are, I don't even know, maybe 5 minutes away, we are not in competition with you. No, exactly. We're all fighting the same cause.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are going to get onto your topic for the Power Summit, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. But let's wrap up the Cressy talk.
Yeah.
And then we're about to lose video. Sorry for everyone about that. But it is still going to be, the audio will play through, and you'll get the podcast. So let's talk about your experience at Cressy, and then let's tie that into your topic for the Power Summit.
Definitely. Cool. So I ended up going to Cressy at the start of 2016. I started in January, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, January. It was winter in Boston, very cold, snowing. And it was a 5-month internship, unpaid, full-time coaching. So I did 35 hours on the floor every week. Wow. There was 7. We had 7, but 1 pulled out. So there was 6 interns. A total of 6 interns at the facility I was at. I think there was 4 in the Florida facility. But we all were full-time interns. So 35 hours a week coaching.
That's massive.
Yeah, so we got 1 day off a week. And then the way they run their gym is a 2 p.m. start to an 8:30 finish. They don't open in the mornings. They do a group class sort of thing 3 mornings a week. But for the most part, the Cressy model is taken, 2 till 8, 2 till 8:30. I think it was 8 or 8:30, can't remember. And we did 35 hours unpaid. And from a young person, I had saved up a lot of money from personal training. It can be quite lucrative if you do it the right way, if you don't burn out, but that's another conversation. I had saved up a little bit of money, so I was fine with that. I found a place to rent about 5 minutes from the gym. I lived with 2 other interns, and they were very helpful with me with driving around and taking me to the gym and all that sort of stuff, which was really, really, really helpful. But I did a 5-month internship. I finished 2 weeks early because I wanted to do a little bit of travel at the end. Obviously, I'm in America and I want to go and see some other stuff. And I actually went to one of my other online mentor, Mike Robertson's gym, for 10 days. Nice. And I did a very accelerated internship there as well. But for 5 months, 35 hours a week, and we pretty much work purely with baseball. I think 85% of their clientele is baseball, all the way from junior to the elite of professional.
Major league guys.
They had a lot of Cy Young winners, which is like your Brownlow medal here in Australia. They had a handful of those guys. They had
Major League Baseball MVP, effectively.
Like pitching, best pitcher.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so a lot of them were pitchers, probably because of Cressy's understanding of the shoulder. I believe in the strength and conditioning field is unmatched by anyone.
Pitching is such a unique biomechanical action. It's,
Yeah.
Get that niche is paid off well.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of pitches, but as a whole, a lot of baseballs. But then as a result of that, and this is something I learned from my own business development sort of thing, by hammering a niche so hard and so well, you get other people that understand and can almost see your expertise helping in a range of other things. And that's what they've done really well at Cressy Sports Performance, is that they get a whole lot of other athletes, but also general pop. They get people flying in to do rehabilitation, like an intensive month rehabilitation with them and all that sort of stuff. So I saw a lot of different case studies with them, but a lot of it was baseball. Yeah.
And so did you get thrown in the deep end coaching?
Yeah, straight away. So day one, we actually got told fake it till we make it. We actually, in fact, there was a 10-week pre-internship learning, which is almost like a unit of university. So week 1 was this topic, week 2 was that topic, and we had to learn all of that. They gave us a 760 video database, exercise database, and we had to know every single video. I didn't know every single video, not even close.
So fake it till you make it?
Yeah. I think I knew the basic ones, and they had a lot of variations of the same, but there was 760. And I think it's grown since then. They keep sending updated ones. So we've got our own one building here, and we're at about 300 right now. But so they had an exercise database, which you had to learn, and 10 weeks of pre-learning. And then that was before we got there. Day 1, they put us straight on the floor and said, "You're our interns. You are a vital part of our business model here. Without you guys, we would crumble. So you got to coach from day 1." So we're like, "All right, let's go." They opened the door. I was lucky because I was Australian, so everyone just heard me talk. People were gravitated to me. Yeah. We had 120.
Say good day, mate. Yeah. All the attention in the room.
Yeah, exactly. We had 128 athletes on day 1. We walked into a busy period for them. So 128 athletes in day 1.
So January, that would be winter, that'd be the off season.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of extra guys.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. So a lot of college guys as well. A lot of college guys. It was probably the most, at the early stage of the internship was mainly college.
Yep.
And a few high-level pro guys, and then a couple high school, and it shifted towards high school by the end of the internship. But yeah, we got 128 athletes or 126 athletes or something like that on day 1. Our main goal was to just go around, meet them, help them with small things like elbow position in rows, knee position on squat, on lunges and all that sort of stuff, hip position on deadlifts, just easy things to coach.
Coaching, yeah.
That's
the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, exactly. Coaching reps. It always comes back to that. Just go and get coaching reps and go and meet them and make sure you remember people's names. They were very, very heavy on that. I had a leaf book, a binder book with just everyone's names, and I had day 1 and I literally wrote everyone's name that I learned, something about them, whatever, and then I just tried to remember them for day 2, remember them for day 3. But yeah, so they were, from day 1 we were coaching.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and then over the 5-month period, I did 35 hours every week of on the floor coaching. By the end of it, we got opportunity to sit in on assessments. I was lucky enough to get selected to sit on a couple of Eric's assessments with new clientele, and some guy had flown in from Colorado to do a shoulder. He just had a shoulder surgery, and we were talking with him. We also had some email back and forth with the surgeon and stuff, so that was really interesting to see, and how Eric's brain ticks through that process of trying to work out the best way to move through the rehabilitation process. I learned a lot through those small encounters as well. So we were part of everything from coaching on the floor, coaching the group sessions in the mornings, sitting in on assessments. We did a weekly in-service, which is about a 2-hour, almost like a class or a lesson. Across a wide variety of topics. They had special speakers come in, talk about certain different things, rehabilitation stuff. We had a pitching guy come in, talk about pitching mechanics and how that might affect some of your training philosophies and your exercise selections. So yeah, it was just a really good, fully immersed learning experience. Yeah.
Wow. What's Eric like as a guy? He comes across very intense and very meticulous.
I reckon he's got ADHD. I can't really sit still. I remember there was one day, by the end of it, because we were coming into the in-season, so it was quite quiet by the end of the internship. We went from seeing 100, I think the busiest day we had was 150 athletes. Seeing from 150 athletes down to maybe like 30 across a whole shift. So it literally like a seasonal sort of swing. It was one of those quiet days, and he was still just bouncing around, talking to one person, going to his office, taking a phone, coming back out, send an email, come back out, eating a sandwich, walk back in, talking something, starts a conversation over here, then go somewhere else. Like he was just, but incredibly intelligent. As I said, he had his finger on the pulse across a wide variety of topics and different areas. Business, definitely one. Obviously, strength and conditioning and anatomy and all that sort of stuff. But pretty much any conversation, any like specific conversation you wanted to get into, he would have some sort of knowledge or some sort of reading on the topic that he could add into it. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
All right, so let's shift gears now. We've got the Power Summit coming up on September 9th.
Yep.
The link will be in the description, so you can check that out there. You're presenting on frontal plane and transverse power development and transfer, I suppose.
Yeah, so power development, sort of like from strength training into power training. So how you could sort of apply some of your strength training philosophies and then transfer what you're learning in the strength world and adapting that into the power specific. So transitioning to more specific for sports performance. Yeah.
Cool. So tell us, first of all, what's the transverse and frontal planes and what's the other plane? And why is this important and why are they neglected?
Yeah, definitely. So for the most part, there's 3 planes of motion in regards to human movement. We have the sagittal plane, which for most people is the easiest one to understand. It's pretty much just walking or moving forward and backwards.
Forward or backward or up or down as well.
Yeah,
so, squatting, deadlifting, core lifting, running.
Yeah, all your traditional sort of strength movements. So barbell lifts, a lot of dumbbell work. More of those traditional movements fall under the sagittal plane or flexion and extension. You then have the frontal plane, which is then side to side. So for the most part, not as the easiest one that I tell people is a lateral raise. So literally just lifting a dumbbell out to the side.
Or for our athletes, we do a lot of lateral push stepping.
Yeah, definitely.
Reverse skaters, that's a frontal plane exercise.
Yeah. So skater squats, lateral lunges, we use a hell of a lot here, and that's something that we're going to be touching on in the presentation. Lateral lunges, variations. Sled pushes, lateral sled pushes, all that sort of stuff. So anything where you're moving side to side, so you're moving across your body,
which is why it's called frontal. So it's moving across the front as opposed to moving forward.
Yeah, definitely
across the front.
Yeah, definitely. And then you have your transverse plane. So the third plane is anything with rotation, a rotation capacity. So taking control of both of those planes, the frontal and the sagittal, and then putting them together into some sort of transverse movement. Or this is for the most part is where a majority of athletic expression comes into play, is the transverse plane.
So a baseball pitch is you're pitching the ball forward, but the power comes rotation.
From a rotational standpoint,
which is transverse.
Coming out of the ground, through the body, it rotates, turns into a sling, and then you get a 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming down your throat.
If you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's the transverse in the gym is like med ball stuff.
Yeah, med ball work, some plyometric progressions as well. You can get into some rotational things. There's definitely some core exercises you can do with like a cable machine, some landmine variations as well. I know a lot of people use like sandbag implements and all that sort of stuff, but for the most part, either throwing something or rotating with a heavy implement. Yep.
So why do you think it's so hard for people, or why does it get neglected so much compared to sagittal? Or both of them?
Well, I guess sagittal, for the most part, a majority of training just falls into, and something that we're in a very unique position here at Strength Culture, because we have high level powerlifters, which is sagittal plane dominance.
Only sagittal plane.
Exactly. And I've actually got some slides to show the adaptations that occur from pure sagittal plane dominant training. And then we have some high-level athletes here as well, some very high-level junior baseballers. We've had some AFL guys in here as well who are complete opposite, and their demand for their expression of athletic performance, because powerlifting is still a sport, their demand for athletic performance is completely the other end. So you've got these sagittal beasts that a lot of people see through social media, through YouTube, and that's sort of what gets filtered down to a lot of the junior coaches, I feel, and they start to just fall into the sagittal goggles, being squat, deadlifts, core lifts, as you guys call them, trap bar lifts, power clean. Yeah, ollie lifting is quite often seen as the gold standard for power training. I don't believe in that. I think it's too technical, and unless you're an Olympic lifting coach,
which Chris is also.
I'm very excited to see what he talks about. But from my own experience, just Olympic lifting, I'm not an Olympic lifting coach. I've dabbled in it for a few months, but by no means have I got the understanding of the two movements to coach people in it.
For those not familiar, the clean and jerk is one, and then the snatch.
And the snatch, and a lot of people use high pulls and variations or subsidies of those two movements. But for me, it's just not what I like. It's not what I'm good at either, so it's not what we use. So a lot of people, a lot of young coaches, I feel, fall into the trap of just using sagittal plane movements to train their power in.
Yeah, and what we see is it's like you can really track the numbers and be very precise with it, because if you're deadlifting, you can clearly add just a couple more kilos and deadlift.
It's very objective.
Yeah. Whereas doing things like med ball throws and the weights obviously start lighter because you have to do a lot of control work through the core so that you don't bend and flop in the wrong directions. And so it's fiddly to start, and you can't really lift. No one's rotationally land running pressing hundreds of kilos.
Yeah, well,
so there's no ego attached to it.
Yeah, for the most part, our med balls here, we have one med ball that's 12 pound. That's our heaviest med ball, so 6 kilos. And we have a whole bunch that are 6 and 8 pound, and that's where most of our med ball work comes in. Yeah.
And so what you're really looking for when you train that, because sport is, and the seminar is all about power, it's not so much about how heavy the med ball is, it's about how much slap you can get on the wall.
How much much speed. We tell our kids to just break the ball. I want them, by the time they're in sort of month 3 of our program, you should be breaking balls. Like, literally force me to buy new med balls. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah, and we had one break, 3 kilo the other day from some scoop rotations.
Some hip tosses, nice.
And just ripped it apart, and just the whole thing just shattered.
We got the big soft ones.
Yeah, we need to get some of those. Are they called slam balls?
Yeah, I think they are slam balls, but we use them for everything. Yeah.
So in our gym, we've got the small ones that kind of basketball size,
we've got a couple of them.
We need the ones that have got the fabric so you can really slap them against the wall.
Yeah, against the wall on the floor. Yeah. So I think, and I fell into it myself as a young strength and conditioning coach, of being sagittal dominant with my programming, and then once I was exposed to, holy moly, there are this whole other world of frontal and transverse plane power here. At Cressy, that's when I started to be like, all right, I need to develop some progressions and understanding of how we can use this with athletes that aren't pretty much sprinters and jumpers.
And so that's effectively what your presentation will be on.
Yeah, exactly. So
some theory, some prac?
Yeah, so we've got a 45-minute presentation and a 30-minute practical. So my presentation starts off with understanding the 3 planes of motion and why they're all important and all that sort of stuff. Moving a little bit into what happens when we become sagittal dominant. And again, we've got the population here to show you the adaptations that occur.
Yeah, because power is specific to the movement and the muscle groups.
So
if you're doing power only sagittal, it won't transfer.
It doesn't. Yeah. And I've got a little bit of research to support that as well, which I'll have linked in the slides. But I'm going to show some of the adaptations that occur when you turn into a sagittal beast. That's what we call them here, sagittal beasts.
And if you go too far down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. What happens? What happens at the hip? What happens with the adaptation at the T-spine? Literally the shutting down of rotation capacity. Wow. So we'll go into that sort of stuff, and then we'll start to develop into understanding frontal plane movement in the gym. So strength training, frontal plane movement, and transverse plane movement in the gym, and then transferring that then into power development. And then my practical will just purely be on plyometric and med ball progressions for power training.
So exciting.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Med ball stuff's an area where at Core Advantage we're still not novices, but we're still early days on learning all that sort of stuff. So for something like this to be hosted in our facility, we're super stoked from a selfish point of view. Just to steal all your stuff and steal the stuff that you've stolen from Cressy, and then everything just gets paid forward.
Yeah, exactly.
And then start applying to our athletes, because we're starting to get more swimmers, and swimmers obviously a lot of anti-rotation type motion through there. Water polo, we've got a handful of baseballers as well, and tennis as well. Rotational power is vital.
I think you could pretty much put every single sport that isn't 100-meter sprinting into, they need rotational power.
And even for 100-meter sprinting, you've got the resistance.
Yeah, for sure.
If you haven't sprinted in a while and you then go do some sprints, your obliques will be pretty sore next because you have to resist that.
So definitely.
You may not have to transfer and create it, but definitely the resistance of rotational transverse power.
No, there's plenty to take home, I feel. Yeah, for sure.
Exciting, Jamie. Well, thanks for joining us today on the episode.
No worries.
Do you have any links or anything like that you want to share? I'll share obviously Melbourne Strength Culture. Check them out on YouTube. They've got a bunch of videos.
Yeah, I think my personal one is Instagram, just j.smith.culture. Melbourne Strength Culture as a gym is just all one word. And then probably just our website. We're all our podcast, our YouTube channel, online coaching opportunities and all that. And our internship information is all on the website.
Beautiful. Thanks heaps, Jamie.
No worries. Thank you very much.